Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a very big winter storm for portions of the Great Lakes and the interior northeast. Some areas could be picking up as much as 3 to 6 or more inches of snowfall. We're going to be going over my snowfall forecast to give you an idea of what I'm thinking with this storm. We're also going to be going over that potential polar vortex shift that might bring it down into portions of the eastern United States as we get into the later part of December. So we're going to be going over a lot of stuff in today's video. We're also going to be looking at the GFS and European model just to see what they're showing for this storm. So let's start off with your current National Weather Service page. We currently have, I believe those are cold-related warnings, if I'm not mistaken. Freezing spray warnings, if I'm not mistaken, over a portion of Washington State. We also see some frost advisories for portions of Oregon, with some freeze warnings in Northern California. We have dense fog advisories in effect for portions of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, with some dense fog advisories in Oregon and some air quality alerts also in southern Oregon there. So let's start talking about that potential polar vortex shift. Now this is looking 90,000 to 105,000 feet up in the atmosphere. So this is your polar vortex. You can see it's wrapped up nicely in the Arctic region, and that's what you should expect for this time of year. It's supposed to be locked up in that area, and that would actually lead to a fairly zonal flow where you would have fairly mild or average conditions, not a lot of cold or warm conditions. What you want to see if you like cold and snow is this polar vortex start to kind of become an oval, which is what you're going to see in this model run, where it kind of becomes an oval that'll allow a trough into the United States, somewhere in the United States at least, and so you would get some cold air out of this. Now, what you're seeing on your screen is the current polar vortex, and this is going to take about 7 to 14 days to translate to the surface. So whatever you see here, add another 7 to 14 days onto that, and this is what the surface map should look like generally, with your cold air locked up to the north, your warmer air pushed further to the south. Now, again, this is a 7 to 14 day lagging indicator. So what you see here, you're going to have to add 7 or 14 days to that. Now, let's continue forward here, and let's go to 100 hours out about. So this would be about 4 days from now. So November 25th, you start to see that shift a little bit further to the west. Now, this would indicate a trough in the west by this point, ridge or somewhat of a ridge out in the east. You would have your cold air coming down in from western Canada and northwestern Canada, and you would have a fairly cold flow. Now, this would be probably when it would actually take place on the surface. This would probably be right around December, I would say probably right around December 5th or so. Now, as we go forward, another about 4 or 5 days, here's by November 29th, and you see this is more of a flow where parts of the central United States would be getting into some of that colder air. Most of your storms would kind of ride up the Appalachians, so it would be a fairly wet pattern for portions of the East Coast, but areas inland would most likely be in a colder pattern. This would most likely take place if you had 7 to 14 days to this. This would probably take place right around December 10th or so, and then as we continue forward, here's by December 3rd on the model run. Add 7 to 14 days to that. That's anywhere from about December 10th to about December 17th, and we're looking at this trough now in the eastern United States for these regions, and that cold air is now coming out of Greenland and northern Canada straight down to the surface in parts of the eastern United States. And let's go out to the end of the model run, and it's still there by December 7th. And what that means is that if you had 7 to 14 days, that would be anywhere from December 14th to about December 21st. That's nearing Christmas week. We could potentially see a colder than normal Christmas, and you still see, look at those isobars, you still see that little trough in the eastern United States. You still see some cold air moving through the eastern United States by that point. Now, let's start talking about this system, and we're also going to be going over my snowfall forecast at the end of the video. So let's go over the two models, and then we'll look at my snowfall forecast. Here would be probably right around 12 p.m. today. We're looking at, and this would be in Central Time, we're looking at a band of rain moving from Kansas to Ohio, just setting up over those regions. You start to see a little bit of mixing according to the GFS, and the GFS is much warmer than what the European model is showing, and I think this is a little bit too warm of a model currently, or a model run. We're seeing some mixing potentially for Michigan and Illinois Illinois. We see a little shortwave trough moving through portions of northern Minnesota there, kind of like this. And here's your low pressure system over parts of Arkansas and Missouri. You're going to see one of them move further to the south. You're going to see another one move further to the north and east. So they're going to split up, and you're going to see that play out in the model run. Now, as we continue forward, here would be by Sunday right around 6 in the morning, and then as we move to right around 12 p.m., we're looking at some of that snow really intensifying for portions of Michigan and portions of upstate New York, as well as portions of Ontario, Canada. We're also looking at some of that snow for portions of the upper Great Lakes, and moving forward, you start to see that system starts to pull out further to the north. We see it kind of move out further to the north and east. We're seeing some snow on that northern side, maybe some back end cold air that might lead to some rain or snow showers within the coming future. And then as we continue forward, you start to see some of that rain set up for portions of Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and that's your next system. So these are two different systems. We're seeing our next system set up right over here, and this is going to be our big powerhouse system, and this is where most of these areas are going to get the bulk of their snow. As we continue forward, here would be by Tuesday right around 12 in the morning, and we're looking at some of that rain moving through the central plains. As we continue forward here, and just looking at the surface map, we have a low pressure system right over here. We have a big upper high, which is still in Canada, but you're still seeing some cold air on that front side of here. We're dealing with that moisture being pulled up from the Gulf of Mexico, so we have a very warm, moist flow. But we also see that even though it's warmer than normal, or it would be near normal, it's still cold enough to get some snow on that northern side, and that is what we're going to see with this system. So let's play this out. Here to be by Tuesday right around 6 a.m. Some rain is probably going to come later on. So you're probably going to start as snow for many regions right around the morning hours. So probably before the sun rises on Tuesday. And then it'll probably switch over to rain for many areas. Areas in the upper Great Lakes might stay snow for a little longer. And that's why they'll add up to a little bit more snowfall than the other regions. Now, that snow continues further to the north. We see more of that heavy snow moving through the upper Great Lakes. We now see two low pressure systems, one in Oklahoma and another one in Iowa there. And then as we continue forward, you start to see that really pushes out further to the north and east. A lot of these areas are actually going to switch over to rain, at least at some point. It's just how much rain do you get, because that'll wash away some of your snowfall. So maybe at one point in the storm, you have 3 inches of snow on the ground, and after the rain happens, you have none on the ground. That's just because the rain will melt away most of that snow, if any does accumulate. Now, here would be by Wednesday, right around 6 in the morning, and then as we move to 6 in the afternoon on Wednesday, we're dealing with that little trough moving through the eastern United States. A line of rain pushes through. This would be by Thursday, right around 6 in the morning, and actually this would be probably 5 in the morning Eastern time there. So here would be the European model and what it's showing, and we see pretty much the same story as we continue forward. You start to see that line of rain start to set up from it's a little bit longer than what the GFS showed. The GFS showed basically from about Indiana to Kansas, and the European model showing from Pennsylvania to Colorado. So it's a little bit wider of a storm here, and we start to see that cold air starts to push in a little bit. So by this point, as we get to Sunday morning, we're dealing with some snow potential for portions of northern Indiana, northern Ohio, southern Michigan, a little trough moving through portions of Minnesota that might bring a little bit of snow. And as we continue forward, this would be by Sunday, right around 12 in the afternoon. We're dealing with some of that snow moving through portions of upstate New York, maybe some mixing for the Ohio Valley, and then mainly the interior Northeast and northern New England get into most of that snowfall as we get to Tuesday night. Then as we're getting to Monday early in the morning, most of that snow has switched over to rain, and as we continue forward, maybe on the back side, the system is able to upwell some of that colder water and bring it on the backside. Maybe some of these areas in northern New England go from snow to rain to to snow again, and as you continue forward, it really starts to push out of here. Now, by this point, let's shift our eyes to this area over portions of the Central Plains. That's your next system. So this was our first system out here, this big mess over eastern Canada. This is our next system, and this is what we really have to watch out for, especially if you live in the upper Great Lakes. This is where you're going to get most of your snow. As you continue forward here, you start to see most of that rain switches over to snow on the northern side. And as we continue, that system really only pushes further north, and it really pushes a lot of that snow fairly far to the north. It's really over northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, northern Michigan. Those are really the only areas seeing snow by this point. And as we continue forward, some of those areas switch over to some rainfall, and then it really just becomes a fairly all rain system until it hits the interior northeast. Some of these areas in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont might pick up as much as 6 inches of snow from the combination of these two systems. And as we continue, it really just dies out by this point, and you're not seeing a lot of rainfall or snowfall by this point. The European model does try to spin up some sort of system, and that might bring a little bit more rain as we get to Friday. Now, that system moves out, and we're pretty much all said and done with this by Saturday early in the morning. Now, here's what the European model shows for snowfall. We're dealing with 2 to 6 inches of snowfall in the blue. If you're in the grays, that's where you're under 1 inch to 2 inches. Even in the purples, that's where you're looking at 6 to maybe 8, 9, or 10 inches of snowfall. And we see quite a bit of snowfall for many of these areas. In the upper Great Lakes, maybe closer to 2 to 4 inches. In the interior and northeast, maybe a couple areas squeeze out 6 inches or more of snowfall. Here's what the GFS shows for the same storm, and you can see I'll go back and forth between the two. The GFS is a lot further to the north with most of the snowfall, and I don't know if I'm really buying that. I have seen the GFS just last night was showing that band of snow for Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan, and now it's not showing it. The European is still showing it, the Canadian model is still showing it, so I think it's just the GFS and in one isolated run being a little bit weird, and I think I'm gonna value the Canadian and European model a little bit more just because the GFS was also showing this just last night. It shifted rapidly overnight, so we'll still have to see. There's a lot that can still change with this event. Now, here's the total rainfall, if you are wondering, and some areas over the coastal northeast could pick up as much as 2 or 3 inches of rain over the next 7 days, and also 2 to 3 inches or even more of rain for areas in the Ohio and Tennessee valleys, and also for the lower Mississippi River valleys there, looking at maybe closer to 2 or 3 inches of rainfall. Now, here's my personal forecast for this event. Under 1 inch of snowfall should be expected for these regions, for much of the Great Lakes, and even portions of the eastern upper Midwest. As you get into portions of the interior and northeast, you guys are also looking at some snowfall under 1 inch. This is where maybe you get some flakes or maybe even a light dusting for a short time period before it all switches over to mainly rain for some of these areas. Now, this is going to be going from today all the way until the 25th. Let's move on to the next layer, and we're looking at 1 to 3 inches of rainfall for portions of Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, and then through northern Indiana and northwestern Ohio, where that little band of snowfall set up. We also might get a little bit of lake effect enhancement over parts of upstate New York, where you might be able to pick up 1 to 3 inches. Over the Adirondacks, I also think you'll get at least 1 inch or 2 of snowfall, and over parts of northern New England, you guys could also see maybe 1 inch or 2 of snowfall at least. Here's the 3 to 6 inch region, and this is for portions of the interior northern Great Lakes, I guess you could say, because areas closer to the Great Lakes, closer to the shoreline, probably will be a little bit too warm, just because of how warm those Great Lakes are. They're probably in the 50s and 40s, so they're still very, very warm. If they were in the 30s, this would be pretty much the entire northern Great Lake region, but just because of how warm those lakes are, areas that are closer to the shore of the Great Lakes might not see as much snowfall, and that's just because it will be too warm over the Great Lakes, and some of that warm air will spill onshore for a couple of miles inland. So you will have to get a little bit further inland, a little bit further north and west to actually get some of that 3 to 6 inch plus area. We also see a little area in northern Indiana that's mainly from that first system that pumped out a heavy band of snowfall for those regions, and it's been fairly consistent. The GFS just recently changed that up, so we'll have to see if there's any validity to that. And then you see over the Adirondacks and northern New England, you guys are also dealing with some snowfall, maybe 3 to 6 inches. A couple areas could even see up to 6 or more inches. So this has been a little bit of a longer video. We had a lot to go over, so I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.